Hi there. My name is Rachel Thexton, and I am principal of Thexton PR and host of Rachel Thexton Connects. I'm thrilled today to be the guest host here at SocialPacific West 2025. We are doing the Marketing News Canada podcast live from BC's largest digital marketing conference. And right now, I am thrilled to sit down with two guests. I have Darren Chiu and Ben Wise, co-founders of Captivate. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
So today you will be speaking about the art and science of behavior. So can you tell me, just to kind of set the stage a little bit about Captivate and what the company's about, what you do for customers there?
Sure thing. So Captivate is essentially a content creation company. We have newsletter, social. We do a lot of speaking engagements like this. And really what we're about is taking the research on psychology kind of out of the world of academia and making it useful to people in the business world. So whether you are in sales or marketing or HR or a leader, there's a lot you can learn from the psychology research to help you be more effective. So we're trying to bring that to people in a way that is easy to digest, really easy to implement, and hopefully fun and entertaining.
Human behavior is complicated, as you know better than anyone. What are some of the tools that you use to kind of gather how people behave, how they're interacting, acting, how you predict they may interact and act?
Yeah, we go through a lot of research on our own. Mainly Ben does 90% of research. I just do 10% of cheering. But yeah, lots of reading, lots of talking to people, and lots of just observing what's happening around us. It's a really highly emotional process to just watch people's behavior based on the way you communicate, based on the way a piece of information is presented or perceived. So I think the biggest tool that we use really is just observe people and couple that with all the research that we've been reading, and just sort of matching, oh, I've read this about this somewhere, and this is happening in this social behavior. And now we know how to thread things together and how to present that as a piece of information for users to digest and to read from.
Now, when you're presenting to clients some of your findings, what are their biggest needs?
Generally, it's about upskilling their teams on communication.
Okay.
And a lot of the communication is either going to be about, change management, or it's going to be about persuasion, or it's going to be public-facing marketing type stuff. And you're a human who's out in the world. You see there's a lot out there, and a lot of it is not very good.
Right.
There is some great stuff, don't get us wrong, but there's a lot that is not very good because it's just overly rational. And Darren's point of human behavior is extremely emotional. Then there's this disconnect of how we're talking to people as marketers in this rational way. Here's our features are great. Here's a data point on why it's so powerful. And then how we actually make decisions about our behavior, which is much more emotional. Mm-hmm. And so we see a lot out there that kind of lands flat because of that disconnect.
And when you're delivering results to clients regarding your findings on what you have observed, do you find that it is well understood, well taken, or does it become kind of a conversation where emotions become involved, where they're looking for data? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think before going to any meeting, you should find out what story I'm trying to tell and what emotion I'm trying to elicit. And I think a lot of mistake happens when people are just simply presenting numbers and data. I think the first thing we should do is we need to find the data and turn the data into insight. What is data telling me? But that's just step one. Step two is, based on this insight, what is the story behind this? Am I trying to tell a story about a sense of urgency? Am I trying to tell a story about how we should collaborate together as a company? I think that is the bigger engine that's driving the meaningful conversation that people ultimately sit down and have a really fruitful discussion about.
Yeah, I don't think we tend to get much pushback on the ideas. I think once you explain it, because everyone is human, they can see that in their own behavior.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the times you see, the light bulb goes off of oh, that's why I said that, or that's why so-and-so reacted that way, or that's why this commercial works so well. And I think once people understand that psychology, and if you can put it into kind of plain English terms, which the academics don't do a great job of, then people are pretty bought in and pretty keen to try it out.
Obviously, it's become just a kind of a buzz sentence now, but clutter. There's just so much clutter, so much noise to break through. When it comes to evaluating human behavior, is that dramatically changing how you're recommending or creating content?
I think the foundational principles of good communication have not changed. I think the way that our brains are wired is pretty kind of set. And so to appeal to someone's emotional side, the way you do that is, the key elements haven't changed much. That said, I think the channels, the speed, the responsiveness, that has all changed. So if you look at, the way people are communicating through social media as an example, obviously it's just much faster than anything would have been even 10 years ago. So brands need to think about what they're putting out, but how they're replying, how they're interacting with customers, because not kind of a one way we're pushing out a message like commercials were 20 years ago. Today it's we put something out, people are going to react, we're going to engage with them, and there's a back and forth, almost a relationship with the brand in a way that there didn't used to be, which is daunting because it's a lot of work. It can be higher risk because lots of well-documented examples where people mess that up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a huge opportunity because if you can build a relationship with your customer, they are going to be much more loyal. They are going to buy more. They are going to tell more of their friends about you. So I think if you do it well, there's a ton of upside, which is really exciting, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Building relationships and trust. We're talking kind of about emotional connection. Just tell me a little bit about storytelling and how you're able to kind of advise clients or leverage the art of storytelling in what you do at Captivate.
Yeah. So there's a really interesting study done by the South Park creators.
Oh, really?
We love that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I feel like it's a very good way of describing how you should think about a story. They say that a good story shouldn't be this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's not exciting. You're just stringing together a bunch of facts.
Right.
A good story is this happened, but that happened. Therefore, this happens. So there's friction, there's twists and turns, there's consequences. And that could be told in a conversational story. I'm telling a story about my Friday night. But it could also be in business, right? You are selling a couch today, and last year you have tapped into 100% of the market on the East Coast. But you have largely ignored the West Coast customer. Therefore, you have a huge opportunity to expand your business westward. And all of a sudden, there's consequences, there's friction. So I think it's a lot simpler than we all think.
Right.
Just think about where the beginning of your story is and where the end is. That's 90% of the work. And all you need to do is find the midpoint where the inflection point happens. And that is your story.
Yeah. And I think one of the most amazing things about storytelling in general is it's like a secret key to get into someone's mind or into their emotions. You can come with a commercial that is a bunch of stuff, and people they have this natural wall. Like, no, I'm good. I don't even know what you're offering, but no, I'm good. I don't need you to sell me something. When you build it around a story, it just naturally brings that wall down. It's like your secret pass into your customers' minds or their customers' hearts, into how they're thinking and how they're choosing what to do and how they're going to behave. So having the good story with the kind of the techniques that Darren was touching on, but just using story in the first place is just so powerful to overcome that initial resistance.
Humanizing?
100%.
Yeah.
And this is something we hear a lot with clients that are maybe more kind of sales side or more on the B2B marketing. But they're like, oh, well, we're not going to go into a personal story. And we always say, that is absolutely the wrong approach. No matter what, there's room to be personal. There's room to be human. There's room to share your own stories. And I think the best B2B marketing campaigns, the best sales pitches, they are founded in it. They are rooted in a personal story.
It's so funny. Recently bought a new vehicle. Long story short, had a complaint and did the complaint to the GM via a story of how it was to purchase the vehicle, the excitement of it, and then the disappointment of what ended up going wrong. It was fixed anyway.
But suddenly you're not just an angry customer, you're a person with a story and a relationship with the brand, and they're much more open to, car dealerships. I imagine they get complaints a lot.
Exactly.
And yours breaks through because it brings that wall down, right?
It did. The GM was back to me within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it was the storytelling. Do you think that maybe played into things?
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, in what I do in public relations, storytelling is certainly a part of things. But where do you think there seems to be a resistance sometimes? Maybe people think they don't want to go personal, they don't want to dig deep, they don't want to look internally, or they don't want to ask others to do so. Do you find kind of resistance around the storytelling element when it comes into play in your strategy?
Definitely. I think especially in the professional setting, because we've been so trained to be like, we're going to stay professional, we're buttoned up.
Yeah.
And to tell a personal story, what it really means is that I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to tell me something that I didn't know about you before. And I think a lot of people don't associate that with power. But in fact, I think vulnerability carries a lot of power. Obviously, you've done tastefully. And so I think
Small detail.
yeah, and also just like sometimes it is hard to do. It is a trained skill. It's like, if I want you to go and sell this couch and tell a story about this couch, most people are like, well, I don't know. What about my personal life that's related to this couch? So it is something you need to practice and really just go through the motion of doing so. Then eventually get comfortable of finding the links between selling an item to what personal story you could find. Or maybe it's not even personal. Maybe it's a story that you read online. Then that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just getting your brain to get used to finding those nuggets and then put them together.
I like this idea of what you said, that vulnerability is power. I think that in the corporate world, we have a lot of followers and not enough leaders that are kind of swaying outside the lines and make risks in the emotional side of things, which, I mean, you don't have to become overly emotional and take it too far, but, just opening up, like you say, and having that vulnerability that kind of makes people pay attention.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you were saying before about like it humanizes you. Nobody wants to follow a leader that they think is a robot.
Yeah.
If the leader shows a human side through the storytelling, through vulnerability, through showing some personal side to them, it's like, hey, I'm a human too. And that's going to make you much more appealing to follow as a leader. Mm-hmm.
So tell me about success at Captivate when it comes to working with a client and having them, execute and work with you, collaborate with you in an effective way.
Yeah. So we do a lot of speaking and training sessions, and we kind of close it like there would be nothing that would make us more sad as you going back to your desk and not using anything that we've talked about today. Because they like the training session, it's fun, and then they just go back and do what they always do. That's like a nightmare for us.
Right.
And so when we go through a training session, we really focus on how to make it really easy to do. And that's, I think, the beauty of a lot of these psychological principles is that you don't need to revamp your entire approach. It's maybe changing the wording of a question. Maybe it's the first sentence is a little bit different. Maybe the way you close or the questions you ask them are going to be a little bit different. It's just these small tweaks that have a really big impact. I was actually talking to a client the other day, and they want to have us back because they said after that first session, everyone has been changing the way they ask clients, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And it is like everyone is saying it's more effective. And it's not a big change. It's not a hard change. It's just creating a simple new habit that has a big impact.
Yeah.
Okay.
We really love to just tell people like, do this or say this, or just something as simple as like smile or look at people in the eyes or just make human connection. Just like there's really small things that's been talked about that we can just implement in the process of communication to just bring you a bit closer to connecting with the person that you're talking to. Yeah.
What about industries? The types of industries that you are working with, sectors. Are there some that are more open than others? What kind of sectors do you work with? Industries do you work with? And do you really kind of wish you could work with more or would be more open to it?
Good question. I think when we talk about like the emotional side of behavior and decision making, people tend to assume it's a consumer play.
Right.
But so the second half of your question, like, what do we like to work with more? 100%. Like a lot of B2B companies, a lot of salespeople, they think, well, I'm not selling to a person, I'm selling to a company. And so I need to be rational because the company is rational. But like at the end of the day, the company is staffed by a bunch of humans. And all those humans have the same quirks and the same biases and the same emotional nuance as a consumer. They just happen to work there. So you're not selling to a company, you're selling to an individual. And sometimes we do have to overcome that. And so, if we could work with more, I think it would be more on the B2B side just to round out the portfolio of clients that we work with. But clients that want to work with us
Yeah.
that are into making these changes they can come in all shapes and sizes. So we're happy to work with anybody that's open-minded to those ideas.
How does diversity play into things? I know that culture, especially when it comes to, human behavior and, how we present ourselves, how we interact, it changes culture to culture. We're a very diverse province here in BC and country of Canada. Have you noticed anything around diversity and if so, how do you approach that?
I love how when the question is diversity, I'm
Yeah.
like, Ben, sit down. I take this one. No, I mean,
Over to you, Sugar.
okay. First of all, I just want to level set. I think, at least in Canada, for the most part, most companies, societies, and all of us, we have reached a point where it's not that big of an issue now. Everyone could more or less communicate and get along in a way that's very conscious of our diversity. For the most part, I don't think it's too big of an issue. But what works really well for us is really just diversity in our strength and our background. I think that works really well with us. And that translates to many things. That translates to the division of work. Ben does a lot of research. I do a lot of things like designing the template of our presentation or the template of our newsletter.
Darren writes all my jokes.
And you deliver them?
Sometimes. To varying degrees.
But it also translates to the way we communicate to clients. And even like back and forth just now, like we didn't plan this. This is like a magician moment that we never met before. Like you didn't tell us who was going to answer first.
Right.
But there's a natural diversity between us. I'm like, Ben's going to take this one. It's just easier for him to take it. Even when we do a conference or a workshop, certain questions will naturally come up that will speak to more of my background or Ben's. We'll just naturally step up. So I think overall diversity is our greatest strength in any company. And yeah, we're going to continue to just explore that, even the way that we write our newsletter.
Yeah.
The examples that we use, sometimes we have to be very mindful. Like, for example, Ben has kids.
Right.
So within the case study, sometimes he thinks about an angle from where like parents might run into challenges that I would never think of.
Right.
And vice versa. Maybe I'll think of something that
That's
as an Asian guy.
Yeah.
In this case study, I'm like, well, Ben, we should probably tell our clients about this because this happens to an Asian person, maybe in this market. So
Yeah. The one thing I'd add, I think, is because we try to couch everything in like the in-depth academic research, a lot of the principles on psychology are kind of fundamentally true for everybody in some ways. So the idea of emotional decision making over rational decision making.
Right.
There's a number of like loss aversion as an example is something that is pretty universal. I think so that gives us the foundation, but then where like thinking about the diversity element is really how do you take that concept and then tweak it and adjust it to different groups, whether we're in BC versus in Toronto, whether we're working with Canadian clients or American clients, whether, whatever those differences may be, there's a foundation that is equivalent, and then you need to adjust it to that audience or to that group. So I think that it's an interesting question because it is a bit of like, this is how we treat diversity, but also we don't need to do that because some things are true for everybody and finding that balance.
Like a good example would be like, Ben, you mentioned loss aversion. If you're talking to two different CEOs, one CEO loss could be revenue loss, and they really care about that from a loss aversion perspective. Maybe the other CEO cares a lot about human resources, but they are both fearful of loss, and you just need to figure out who you're talking to. So I guess the short answer to you is diversity, yes, a huge angle, but at the end of the day, you just have to know your audience.
Well, you have me thinking a lot about that.
Good.
That's interesting. I had a question for you when I saw the what you're speaking today about the art and science of behavior, and I was wondering about the value of having someone with a psychiatry or some type of human behavior background, educational background, mixed with marketing.
Yeah.
Like behavioral economics.
What are your thoughts on that?
Transparently, we are not trained as psychologists. We are practitioners. We've been in sales and marketing for 15 years each, but we spend a shocking amount of my weekends reading the academic stuff and then applying it into the sales and marketing. So I think having the understanding of that is super valuable for everybody. That's what we're trying to teach when we do a lot of our sessions. But I think a big part of the value that we bring is kind of the translator or taking that academic stuff and making it actually, putting it in normal everyday terms. Like, oh, well, my company doesn't get to have a controlled study of little kids eating marshmallows. But how can we take the learnings from that study and put it into use in a business setting? And that's where we really focus is learning enough about the psychology and enough about the business world that we can kind of bring them together. But I agree, there's a huge amount of value, and hopefully our clients that we've worked with feel the same.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you about your session today. What is your hope when it comes to what people will take away? If they take away one piece that they remember about Captivate and about what you've delivered, what information?
That will be scan our QR code, sign up for our newsletter, and reach out to us.
Which I'm sure they'll do.
Yeah. I don't know about your answer. Mine will probably just be that just recognizing how emotional we all are in the process of decision making, and just remember to always address that when you are having a conversation with someone.
Yeah, totally agree. We always say, like, if you take away one thing from today, it's that humans are inherently emotional in their decision making and in their behavior, and that applies to everything internally, externally, working with partners, working with clients, advertising to customers. Start with that as your foundation and then go from there.
Amazing. Well, if I wasn't at this mic, I would be at your session. I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to it.
Thank you.
It's been amazing. I've been chatting with Darren Chiu and Ben Wise, co-founders of Captivate here at SocialPacific 2025. This episode has been kindly sponsored by TAKT and Marketing News Canada. For more podcast episodes, more marketing news, please visit marketingnewscanada.com. Thank you so much for joining me today.